Hi, this is Mark News from Plant Talk Radio. Thanks for subscribing and listening to our Plant of the Week podcast, brought to you by Bonide Products, family made in America. Visit Bonide.com to find a retailer near you. Each week, Plant Talk Radio's Fred Hauer focuses on a plant that would be a great addition to your landscape. Now for this week's Bonide Products Plant of the Week. Fred, your Plant of the Week.
Well, the Plant of the Week this week is tall phlox, called garden phlox. I don't know as it has many other names, but the tall part comes with the fact that they are approximately 2.5 to 4 feet tall. That is in flower. They are pure in color in a sense. The white is really white, pink likewise, lavender, to me almost over into bluish and etc. It's a plant that the deer love. The ones in the front, more in the front of my garden where the deer can step in, have been reduced in size by half. I think they will still bloom, but much later. The ones they didn't get to are in full spectacular bloom right now.
Yeah.
And for midsummer, that's really outstanding. Excuse me. Mother Nature and I are having a little discussion. Yeah, right. The plant that you buy, you want to be sure you get from a good dealer who is buying and or growing the mildew-resistant types, because mildew can turn them white. Mine, luckily this year, have escaped that. But by and large, they're tough as nails, and the only thing they don't like is wet feet. So a little higher in the garden.
Well, again, I mean, you talk about a 4-season garden, and this is one of those things that blooms when nothing else is out there in the middle of summer.
That's right. And as a matter of fact, that brings me to a story, just for those of you who want to try it. A friend of mine had a client who was only really home in July, and let's just say they proposed to him that they wanted a garden that bloomed in July when they were there. They didn't care about the rest of the year. So he came up with a list of plants and made a fantastic July garden. And you don't think of July being a sparkling time, but it can be done if you study the kinds of plants you want.
Absolutely. So tall phlox,
Yep.
You say it doesn't like to be wet. So would you plant this as a background or as a foreground plant?
Because of its height, Mark, and this year because of the deer, but definitely mid to background. At 4 feet, 3.5 to 4 feet high, they would shade out and or just visually block things in the foreground. So I would say mid toward background. Depends on the overall height. I have them standing essentially in front of a fence. Fence is a 6-footer, and they're up, half to 2/3 of the way up that fence or standing in front of it. And they are actually hiding a hosta that's behind them. And it seems a little incongruous because the hosta you think of for shade, the phlox you think of as full sun, they're standing there just as happy as they can be together, but they're blocking the hosta at this point in time. Now, as soon as they finish flowering and I take off the dead head, the hosta will show again. But so be it. It's been an interesting thing to watch two plants contradict each other's habits of growth a little bit.
And like you mentioned, a nice sort of a lavender bluish color.
Yeah. Well, the lavender, the pinkish, all kind of blend. Phlox, the breeders have come up with some what I'll call more pure flower colors, and then they've also bred them to be much, much, much more mildew resistant. But they're tough as nails, and they're good full color. They're right now, the ones I have against my graying, aging fence, that are just, they're as almost as white as the driven snow. And they're quite outstanding at that point, especially with the fence in the background, sun now over to the west, shining on them at 4 p.m. They really sparkle.
Thanks again for listening to our podcast, brought to you by Bonide Products at Bonide.com. Plant Talk Radio offers other podcasts as well, including our daily Your Gardening Question podcast and our weekly Plant Talk Radio, all available on iTunes or your preferred podcast player. If you have a plant suggestion for Fred, send him an email, fred@planttalkradio.com.